Good afternoon. I want to welcome everyone to this Learn at Lunch webinar. Today we will hear from Assistant Extension Specialist Sarah Seams as she discusses selecting point of sale systems for businesses. If you have questions, you may ask them through the chat window by clicking the chat button at the bottom of the screen. More information on this and other topics may be found on the eFarm Management and Beginning Farmer and Rancher pages. I will share both links in the chat window. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you now.
All right. Hi, everyone. Happy right at noon, not really morning or quite afternoon, but thank you so much for having me today. Um, Before we really jump into the point of sale information, I did want to kind of set the foundation for this presentation. This resource is actually part of a broader program called the Oklahoma Rural E-commerce Academy, and we call that ORECA for short because it's a bit of a mouthful. But it is a program that is through Extension and funded by the Small Business Administration. And its goal is to really target Oklahoma rural retailers and help them adapt to the shift towards online shopping and the use of digital media in their sales channels. This ORECA program provides technical assistance, it provides some training through digital retail workshops, and it's just really supposed to help our rural retailers remain competitive in this constantly changing digital landscape that we now live in. And I did want to mention too that in addition to the resource that I'm sharing about today, we have a lot of information and even more fact sheets on our website pertaining to online sales and digital marketing. So I'm going to show a quick, I can get my slides to advance. There we go. A quick screenshot of some of the resources that we have currently on our website. It is through Extension. And at the end of this presentation, I will get into the chat and share a link to this website so you can access today's information and so much more. So with that, we'll get into it. Just quickly to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to cover in the next half hour or so, just as an agenda. First, we'll just talk about, what is e-commerce? Second, why offer digital sales through your business? And thirdly, why we're here today is how can you really make an informed decision when selecting a point of sale system for your business? Because they're not all the same and they're not created equal. And depending on your sales channels, if you do more brick and mortar in-person sales versus online sales, we'll talk about some of the ways the fees are structured through these platforms and how they can vary and change the cost to your business if you're not really sure what to look for. So just quickly, e-commerce is essentially the buying and selling of goods and services online. I think we're all familiar with what e-commerce is. It's important because it has fundamentally changed how businesses operate and how people shop. Its value comes from a combination of convenience for both the business owner and the shoppers. It can expand your reach. It can expand your efficiency in your business and it helps provide better data-driven decision making when it comes to business sales. So just some of the advantages, maybe you have a brick and mortar and you're interested in either expanding your online sales or starting online sales from scratch. What are some of the advantages? Well, first of all, it allows customers to purchase your products or services anytime and from anywhere. So they don't have to make it to your store during business hours when you're open, perhaps to buy your products. So it just really allows for that convenience. It allows businesses to track sales data. You can track inventory through a lot of these platforms. You can track sales trends. You have certain products that are really hot and you're selling a lot of, and you've got to get more inventory, or do you have things that really aren't, and maybe you need to reevaluate if you carry that product. It's nice because it can help create reports. It reduces manual tasks and processing time. And a bit back to the convenience of it, you can really broaden your customer base. You can sell not just within your own community, but you can sell statewide, nationally, even internationally. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of slides, kind of what rural retailers are seeing as they expand to online sales. Of course, it offers security features like encryption and fraud detection for your business. And then it just allows you to open up new sales channels. So maybe you want to sell through a website or a mobile app or do social media sales. So it just kind of expands your reach as a business to potential customers. Oop. So just quickly, I want to talk about a couple of studies or surveys that have been done. A survey by the American Bankers Association in 2024 found that 72% of customers use a um, digital purchase methods or a debit card, credit card when they're purchasing their goods or services. Additionally, a study by the Pew Research Center showed that customers are just carrying and using less cash. It's pretty interesting that the number of customers who don't carry any cash for purchases essentially doubled between 2015 and 2022. So you can see with that trajectory how important it is for businesses to offer a way for customers to purchase sales digitally. So when we talk about sales channels, and online sales, what are we talking about? Of course, you have your online web store. So that's like a website or Shopify. Either you have a dedicated website or you might use a Shopify account. You have online marketplaces. That's like your eBay, Etsy, Amazon. Of course, you might have your brick and mortar store where you also offer digital sales methods. You have offline marketplaces, which are like your farmers markets or your vendor pop-up shops. And then lastly, we have wholesales. Here's another study that was done in 2021. This was a survey of about 2,000 small businesses, and what it essentially showed was that even with very limited staff, very limited resources, I know for a fact, even here in Stillwater, a lot of our small businesses, our downtown businesses are kind of owner operator. They may be one, two people that are doing it all. But what this study found was that even those very smallest rural retailers were utilizing at least three of those sales methods that we just discussed. Um, Not to mention that businesses reported about 24% of their sales once they expanded to online selling came from out of state. So when you talk about increasing your customer base, just the potential you have there is great. And they did that through, potentially a website or online social media marketing, which we also have information about on our rec website if you're interested in that. And just lastly, I won't bore you to death with studies and data, but this is just another study that demonstrates the impactfulness of online sales for rural businesses. So, according to this paper published in November of 2025, so it's pretty recent, it showed that rural e-commerce can significantly reduce the urban-rural income gap by expanding those customer markets for rural businesses and creating more employment opportunities for rural residents. And of course, I like to give this disclaimer because we know that rural e-commerce is not without challenges. I think it's getting better, but of course, we still do sometimes see uneven infrastructure in very rural areas. We see, disparities in technological capabilities for, what some of our rural areas have access to. And then there's still remaining, trust issues regarding online sales and online payments. So I did want to just mention that disclaimer before we really dive into everything. All right, so thanks for hanging in there. Here we kind of get to the meat of it and why you're here today. You're probably familiar, but a point of sale system enables merchants to process either cash or credit card debit card payments for the sales of products and services. But as we've already kind of mentioned before, in addition to just making sales, these systems, they can have other functions too. They can calculate and generate receipts. Like I said, they can track inventory, they can monitor sales pattern, they can provide data analysis. They have a lot of benefits to you and your business that can kind of maybe take some tasks you were doing manually and create those reports and information through the system that you're using. I wanted to mention that these systems can be used for both in-person and online sales. And all of the systems that we're going to talk about today do accept and track cash payments in addition to credit card or debit card payments. So to really help you evaluate which point of sale system is going to be best for your business, we do in the fact sheet have a table that compares some of the most popular point of sale systems on the market today. When you purchase a point of sale system, it will likely include both the hardware and the software that you need to facilitate any payments. The hardware might include credit or debit card readers. It might include a countertop terminal or customer displays. I think a lot of us have seen a lot of the like countertop tablets when we go into a store to make purchases. Those have become very popular. It might also have the option to include a barcode scanner and potentially a receipt printer. A lot of these also offer digital receipts, but if your customers wanted a printed receipt, you can usually purchase that hardware along with whatever point of sale system you select. And just as I mentioned before, all of these accept cash and credit or debit card payments, in addition to other types of payments, which we'll also talk about. So these are just some of the important factors to consider when looking at a point of sale system. We kind of go into more depth about these in our fact sheet. But again, you might need certain features. You might need inventory management, or you might need the ability to sync with accounting software. You might need shipping support. Maybe you have a product that you ship a lot of it out and you want to find the best point of sale system for companies that primarily ship their products other places. Almost every point of sale system includes fees that are assessed per transaction. And it's really important to keep that in mind because the fees that are assessed for in-person sales can differ from fees that are assessed online. Or if you've ever gone to a store and they've had to manually enter in your credit card because for whatever reason it wouldn't scan or you couldn't tap it and it would pick up. If they have to manually enter it, oftentimes that is a different fee amount. And oftentimes it's more than what they would pay or you would pay if you were just able to swipe your card. So it's important to take all these factors into consideration. It's also important to remember that most of the point of sale systems will require an internet connection. They may have some features that you can access or use offline, but nearly all of them require an internet connection to process payments. And somewhat lastly, you should check to see kind of what customer support or tech support is offered through these systems because the degree of individual or direct support can really vary. So depending on how tech savvy you are or how tech savvy you're willing to be, you might kind of consider what kind of tech support is offered from the company that you're looking to purchase a point of sale system from. All right, so with that, we're going to jump into a handful of the really popular systems that we look at in our fact sheet. I start out with Square because it is so widely used and it's very popular. And most of that popularity is because they do offer a free version. Their first tier paid version is only about $30 a month, so that's still pretty affordable. And I think it's very popular because that free version offers a low barrier to entry. But it's important to remember that these businesses are in business to make money, right? So even if they offer a free version, they're going to make their money somewhere. So you really want to pay close attention to the transaction fees that they're charging or other, added on fees that may not look initially like you're, going to be paying very much for this service, but in the end you might be. Some of the things about Square is they're actually kind of moving away from, I think you've probably seen it too, the little uh, scanner strip you can plug into your phone to swipe cards. I think they're moving away from that in lieu of kind of the tap to pay method. You can purchase a contactless reader if you want like a little terminal to use. One of the nice things about Square is they offer the buy now, pay later option for customers. So you've probably, if you've been online shopping anytime in the last, I would say at least year, you've probably seen when you check out the option to either pay in full or have a, no or low interest buy now, pay later option where it splits your payment into 2, 3, 4 payments over the course of a couple of months. So now Square is offering that as well. Um, a lot of folks who use Square say that it's very easy to set up, it's very easy to use, but you do have to watch those transaction fees. They can really add up and get expensive. All right, Shopify is another very popular point of sale system. It only has paid versions, but also at a relatively low cost. Its first tier paid version starts at 20, about $30 a month. If you have a business that ships out a lot of product, or you do a lot of online sales in addition to your brick and mortar, Shopify offers shipping discounts and insurance built into their platform. So that might be a nice help to you if you're creating shipping labels, want to keep your shipping costs down, that sort of thing. Another nice thing about Shopify is it accepts ACH debits. So if you have customers who are still kind of using their checkbooks, using their checking accounts, don't want to um, use their debit card maybe to make a purchase, they can use that ACH debit as an option. The other nice thing about Shopify is while you do have to have internet connection to process your payments, it does have some features that can be used offline. All right, Lightspeed. Lightspeed is a little bit different than the first two that we just discussed. Again, it only has paid options and they are a little bit more expensive. You'll see the basic starts at $89 a month. But one thing about Lightspeed is that their fees per transaction are consistent across all packages and all payment methods. So if you really want to remove that the variability of transaction fees cost, this could be a good option for you. If you don't want to have to worry about entering someone's card in manually and getting a higher fee charged or, having that variability, it's worth looking into. It also accepts Apple and Google Pay, which are becoming increasingly popular. I know I did this recently. I got to the grocery store, I was in line, they checked out all my groceries and I look in my purse and my wallet's not there. I left it on the counter at home. Thankfully, the grocery store had Apple Pay and I could pull up my, just use my phone, tap it and pay for my groceries. I didn't have to come back or leave everything there. So those are just again convenience options for your customers. The other thing about Lightspeed is it also accepts PayPal and it has an invoicing feature. And then lastly about Lightspeed, what I'll mention is if you have more than one store or you're looking to expand, you can use their multi-store management system to have all your store's payment data and information in one place, which could be really handy if you have more than one location that you're operating. I just want to check. I didn't think we had chats, but okay. Just want to check and make sure we don't have questions. Quick pause. Next up, we have Clover. Again, Clover only has paid plans, but their basic monthly plan is pretty affordable. One nice thing that's a little bit different about Clover is that they manage reoccurring payments. So if your business offers a subscription product or subscription service, or you need reoccurring, say, monthly billing where you're providing a scheduled product or service, you can manage all of those reoccurring payments pretty easily in Clover. Um, I will say one of the biggest complaints I've seen online about Clover is that for some reason they schedule maintenance during peak business hours. So, it might be a really busy Saturday afternoon and the software is trying to update or process updates while you have a line of customers out the door. And that can become really frustrating. So, uh, with regard to Clover, again, no system is perfect, but that's kind of the biggest frustration that uh, clients seem to have with Clover. And I think this is our last system we're going to talk about today, but it's PayPal Zettle. And this is different than the PayPal that you probably have on your phone where you send money to your friends or family for gifts or to maybe share the costs of a meal you ate out with friends. This is essentially PayPal's answer to PayPal for business use. You're really not supposed to use your personal PayPal account for business transactions. For one thing, it does the personal PayPal that most of us have. It does limit the number of transactions you can have in a time period. But then there could also be some pretty negative tax implications if you're mingling kind of your personal and business use of it. Um, One nice thing about PayPal Zettle is it syncs really nicely to accounting software like QuickBooks and Xero. So you can upload all your payment information monthly or yearly or however you need to QuickBooks, and whether you manage your QuickBooks yourself or you have an accountant, that can be a nice feature. Just again, reducing the number of manual tasks that you might have to do for your business. Um, Their fees per transaction are also variable depending on what type of sales you're conducting. Um, but it also does have an added perk that it accepts QR code payments. So if you have a business where you're frequently setting up like a booth somewhere or pop-up or farmers market, you could print out your QR code and customers can scan that and just pay through their phone. So that's a pretty nice way to easily make sales through that QR code payment. One of the biggest complaints about PayPal Zettle is that they don't have a lot of add-ons or customization for what their site looks like, what you can do for an online website. All right, we went through that kind of fast and furious, but I did want to link um, a QR code to our fact sheet that we have online. And in that fact sheet, we present all of this information in a big, nice, easy to read chart where you can kind of look at all of the point of sale systems that we just talked about side by side. We list what the transaction costs are for each of these. For those that have the variable transaction costs, we list those out. So you can really kind of compare side by side which option might be best for your business. And I did want to leave a few minutes for questions if anyone had any questions. And I'll go ahead and put um, that link in the chat box to our website. So you can access this and many other resources for digital marketing and online sales. All right. I know, Brent, on the last slide, we have a survey link for this webinar today. There we go. Oh, there we are.
Thank you
Oh,
for
thank you.
sharing that. And I also shared a link to that as well as the QR code that you're sharing.
Super. All right. What are most people using at farmers markets? I think a lot of people are using Square. Um, and Shopify to some extent because Shopify is it's just on your mobile phone, so that's all you have to have is your own mobile phone to use Shopify, um, which is really nice. That's what I'm seeing the most of. I will say, as an expansion of this fact sheet, we've gotten a lot of questions, which we didn't really expect this, so we didn't get out ahead of it, but um, a lot of folks have asked about what do you do when you have a business that's transitioning and how do you transition that point of sale system from a previous owner to the new owner of a business? And it's not as easy as you might think. It can be kind of complicated. So we are working on information to share about that just because we know that um, that's been an issue that folks have been dealing with.
I don't see any other questions, so feel free to ask more questions if you do have them. Otherwise, I will probably wind down the webinar and end it for now. Um, we will have a webinar in August, but we have not decided on a date for that yet. So I will communicate that information once that is settled on. So thank you everyone for joining us here today. We appreciate you sitting in and thank you for the questions you asked, and we will see you in August.
Thank you so much.